Hi everyone, my name is Emily, and today I'm going to be talking about PCBs and other toxic organic chemicals. So let's begin. So here I have a table of contents of everything I'm going to be covering today. So what is a PCB? So a PCB is polychlorinated biphenyls. And examples of this are oils used in motors and also cable insulation. Next, I have my first set of research. So Article 1, it was talking about the real impacts to top marine predators and how they were unknown. So really, kind of the research that I conducted and learned about was different variations of, we know this specifically about PCBs, and you'll see that in one of my articles and research that I did that I will explain soon. But sort of in the beginning, when researchers were investigating about PCBs and their effects and implications on marine mammals and also humans in general, because they are indeed pollutants and chemicals. So obviously they have some sort of side effects in a way. So yeah, but Article 1 talks about like I mentioned, the real impacts to top marine predators were unknown. And what I mean by top marine predators are like apex predators like sharks and um, killer whales. Talk about the effects on humans as well that PCBs have. And they did establish, however, even though they were unsure about the actual effects, that persistent PCBs have definitive dose-dependent toxicities. And what this means is the higher the concentration, the higher, like, I guess, the dose, that means like you or the mammal would have a higher chance of getting like a side effect, unintended side effect, like potentially harming their immune system, or I will also talk about this later on, their reproductive system. Another thing, the next article is about that there are already many stressors in the marine environment, and we especially learned about this throughout marine biology. So just the differences in salinity or like ocean acidification and just global warming, like there's a lot of stress on our marine environment already. So with the added stress before POPs, which are organic chemicals, which I haven't talked about yet, but PCBs and organic chemicals, POPs, have on the environment is also extremely detrimental, not even just directly to the environment, but directly harming organisms as well as the environment. So basically, organic chemicals affect human health as well. And POPs, which is an organic chemical in a way, is biomagnified in marine animals, and killer whales are the most affected. And so what this means is that from the bottom of the food chain, so like starting from algae, the crustaceans and everything, they get exposure to these POPs and PCBs that have like leached out from either like toxic waste or pollution and other chemicals that somehow get into the ocean and into these organisms. And as they go up the tertiary levels, the POPs get more and more like concentrated because there's like greater concentration of like fat and like blubber I'll also talk about later. So there's a greater effect. Next, in another article that I did, a research, I learned about these things that I have here, and I will talk about them in a deeper scope. So first off, this article mentioned chemicals. They stay in our environment for a long time and end up in our marine ecosystem. So this is especially true for POPs and PCBs because, as we know, and they keep getting concentrated all the way to the top, which is not a good thing. It's also a growing concern established in this research article as scientists began to take note of the potential harms of PCBs, which, although slightly late since we officially banned them around 1970s, which is at least they're banned, but obviously the effects aren't completely erased yet, because we also still have developing countries that still do use PCBs, or they're not regulated as severely. So it thanks to better technology, and with this development, it came with an increased concern on the effects of PCBs. We also have a bioaccumulation. So basically, like I talked about earlier, kind of like biomagnification a little bit. But like I said, in layman's term, it means the buildup of PCBs in marine animal tissue. All right, and my next research articles that I read about and have a few key moments and summaries for you guys here on the slide. So for my next research article 4, it talked about in 2020. So this is one of my specific articles that I was reading about. So this one targets one of the specific effects of PCBs on marine animals, and it is the immune and reproductive system that PCBs specifically target and affect. So basically, PCBs are endocrine disrupting, and they affect our mechanisms, which in turn affect our enzymes and like how we manage our steroids, and also just various things that are important in our liver and our kidney. And also in my next research article, just to connect them together, PCBs really do affect everything. Like there was even research conducted on like PCBs affect algae, crustaceans, mollusks, and bunnies, and like basically any animal organism that you can think of. It definitely does affect it and is toxic to all of them. And especially in bunnies, they found like after 12 days they died from like the toxicity of the PCB that was injected in them, to kind of see what the effects were. And when they like looked into the report and to see like what specifically was changed, it was the liver and the kidney that were affected, and every other organ and everything was normal, looked normal, but the liver and kidney were no longer normal as a result of the PCBs. And PCBs also has an effect of lowering the effectiveness of our immune system, making us more susceptible to infectious diseases, which is definitely not good. Talk about why I chose this topic, it was because I enjoyed how it was an intersection between chemistry, public health, and just impact on environment, marine animals, and ourselves. So it really is a true trifecta, because I definitely do really like chemistry. In sophomore year, I did learn chemistry from Mount Sac in high school, and it was extremely interesting. And although it was pretty rigorous and hard, I really enjoyed it. And in public health, I actually did begin to learn about PCBs and how they were banned. And I also took this course at Mount Sac last summer, and I really enjoy how they intersect in this topic, and how it really is a public health issue, not only for ourselves, but also for the greater environment as well. So we really need to make sure we deal with PCBs and POPs effectively. How this topic affects me personally, and also all of us, is that, as I mentioned before, it affects our immune system, it affects our reproductive system, and can cause just abnormalities in basically the next generation. If a whale, for example, gives birth, and if they have a high PCBs, they can affect their babies. And so what can we do about this is we can set stricter restrictions on PCBs, and we can encourage other countries to ban them and set strict restrictions as well. Because many countries have already banned PCBs, but it is still prevalent in our environment today. So much more we can do. So it's definitely still been carcinogenic, and they can cause brain cancer and other things that I will also mention later on in this presentation. So this current research topic affects future generations, because if we don't stop it, it can definitely take a unnecessary life that we don't want to happen. It's always a risk factor because it can cause cancers like melanoma and brain cancer, and it's just something that we know we can prevent and we can try to prevent. So let's take action to try to stop this. And here are my references. Thank you. Also, I wanted to quickly mention or explain two visual representations as well of what I've been talking about. So here is what I was mentioning about biomagnification. So as you can tell, the PCBs which are released from the factory and just generally the whatever the PCB was used for, it gets absorbed into the phytoplankton, which then the zooplankton then eat, but so on and so on, and then it reaches the killer whale, which is biomagnification. And as you can see, the effect of this PCB, specifically in this fish here, is also just organ damage and just neurotoxicity, sorry. And then just various other, as you can see right here, it says PCB, just a whole lot of things that we don't want, a lot of negatives that obviously are not good, and we can see that there is an importance in regulating PCBs and stopping them, and ultimately, hopefully, finding a entirely solid substitute that's both inexpensive and also isn't going to be harming ourselves and our environment.